So every year in the NBA, there's always players that break out and have crazy production leaps in so many different ways, but one of the players that will not be one of those players is Michael Porter Jr. MPJ is expected to have a big year after getting traded from Denver to Brooklyn, but although the stage is set for him to become the leading actor in his own movie, the movie is going to flop, because I am here to tell you all of the reasons why Michael Porter Jr. is not good enough to lead the Brooklyn Nets. Despite the freedom that he's going to get playing under Jordy Fernandez, as the team has no direction whatsoever, MPJ is going to encounter a ton of difficulties transitioning from a championship role player to the number one option on a tanking team. He can certainly put up big performances here and there, but he will not be good enough to reach all-star caliber. Have you ever been good at something, and you try to transform from the thing that you're good at to something that seems similar to what you're good at? You might think that your skills and what you're good at might translate over, but once you make that transition, you then realize that this is something completely different. It's like being good at checkers, thinking you'll dominate in chess, when in reality, the rules and strategies are different. I believe this is what Michael Porter Jr. is going to find out next season. During his tenure in Denver, he was a supreme off-ball player. He played off of Jokic, who was able to generate a ton of quality looks for him, and he got accustomed to playing that way. He understands how to get to the ball depending on how the defender is guarding him. He doesn't have the ball, so he can freely move and beat the coverage with little to no pressure. If the defender top locks him and prevents him from getting around the screen, he can cut backdoor. If the big steps up, he can get rid of it to the roller, or actually he might even put it up, who knows. If the big doesn't step up, then you know for sure it's going up. That style of playing is completely different from playing on the ball as the offensive initiator. If you're going to be the number one option, you're going to need to handle the ball and read coverages quickly. The processing speed and the margin of error you have operating on the ball are drastically different off the ball. Any kind of error you make will hurt the team in many different ways, whether it's not making the right read, turning the ball over, or playing too slow. And I believe once MPJ starts getting hounded by the opposing team's best defender, along with having to deal with extra attention from the defense, like the big stepping up, like the low man, maybe other gap defenders stunting down. Once he's met with all of those situations, he will feel unfamiliar. All of the pressure and physicality that he has to deal with will wear him down. And during his time in Denver, he didn't get too many reps of handling the ball. This is something that he's likely going to find out the hard way. Speaking of handling the ball, have you ever noticed a player with a loose handle? Like a handle that doesn't seem tight. It feels like they're going to lose the ball because they're either dribbling too high or too low, or they're just dribbling too slow. Every time they touch the ball, you get nervous because you just don't trust them in that scenario. Yeah, that's MPJ. Before we even talk about him being on the ball, we gotta talk about how he actually can't handle the ball being his size. He's 6'10" with a 7-foot wingspan, so he's a lanky player, and that's not to say that lanky dudes can't dribble, but with him specifically, it feels like he's not mobile. Like he can't get low enough in an athletic stance to dribble past his defender. Oftentimes he's like standing tall trying to dribble, and this is why he struggles with quick handsy defenders. Those defenders will just eat up all the space and pressure him, and at that point, he's likely just going to lose the ball. He can't really change directions quickly either. Again, I think that's just a mobility thing. But something that's probably even worse is that he doesn't even feel comfortable dribbling the ball in space. If you watch Denver games last season, you will see how many times this man picks up his dribble way too early and forces a pass. He'll cross the half-court line barely and pick up the ball trying to pass it to Jokic. You'll never see him dribble the ball up the floor either. He's a solid rebounder, so when he rebounds, he'll pass it quickly. You rarely see him dribble the ball up the floor. And I say this all to say that there's a reason why Mike Malone placed him off the ball for a majority of his time there, right? But before the NBA, he was a top prospect. Make no mistake about it. A player who was supposed to be at minimum a top 5 pick in his draft class. He garnered so much hype in high school that he was supposed to build off of it in college, until he unfortunately got injured. To make it worse, he suffered a back injury, one of the most devastating injuries to have that can severely limit your movement. This can explain his lack of mobility, but what it can also explain is the diminution in athleticism. Having 3 back surgeries is certainly going to affect your first step quickness and your vertical athleticism. Earlier I mentioned that having a loose handle causes him to struggle against smaller, quicker defenders. When big dudes struggle to get by little dudes, what do? They try to shoot over him. A player like KD is the epitome of this. And MPJ has issues getting to the rim, specifically getting all the way to the rim. He doesn't take a whole lot of shots at the rim either. When he does, he lacks the ability to finish through contact, doesn't have great touch, and can't finish too well off 1 or 2 feet. And what you're probably going to see with him in Brooklyn is that he's going to settle for a lot of tough shots, a lot of pull-ups that are heavily smothered, shots that are just not good shots at all. I think you're going to see a ton of inefficiency because the shot quality in his game is going to be terrible. And while MPJ does have the ability to make tough shots, you don't want him to hunt for them. You only take a tough shot if that's the only option available. You don't want to start moving like Paul George and start hunting for contested shots. Not to mention, it also takes you out of rhythm, and overall it's just a bad habit to have. You just make the game much harder for yourself. And truthfully speaking, I thought him being in Denver was the perfect situation for him. He didn't have to handle any big responsibility scoring the basketball. I thought he was a great complementary piece to what Jokic does, as Jokic was a great complementary piece for him. He was supposed to be much more than the player that he is today, but he still managed to find a role that contributed to a championship. Although he's on a crazy run this summer off the court, if you know what I mean, I just think this idea of him going to a bad team and averaging 25 and being an all-star that everyone is saying is just unrealistic when you factor in everything else about him. I think what's going to happen is Brooklyn's going to let MPJ work to test the waters, and they'll quickly realize that he's not good enough for this role. They'll realize that that type of potential that he used to have is no longer here. MPJ is probably going to have an undulant season where he's going to score 30 plus one game and like 6 points the next game, and that's just going to be a consistent trend throughout the season. And here's the thing, MPJ is my guy. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I've been rocking with him since high school, but at the end of the day, I keep it a stack, and I just don't see him going crazy in Brooklyn.